Yay or Nay Show with Alex C. A sports show for sports fans by a sports fan. And now, here is Alex C.
All right, here we go. It is the Yay or Nay Show with Alex C., a sports show for sports fans by a sports fan. Let's talk a little Major League Baseball today, starting with, MLB requesting mediation. The MLBPA turned it down. Let's talk about some of the questions that come up with this. First, let's start off with the story. So with MLB lockout started by the owners on December 2nd, now in its third month, Major League Baseball requested the help of federal mediation on Thursday, which would have potentially inserted a neutral third party in the negotiations. The MLB Players Association responded by declining the request, stating that the clearest path to a fair and timely agreement is to get back to the table. Now, the league reached out to the Federal Mediation and Conciliation Service on Thursday. What does this mean exactly? One of the main questions that anybody would ask, myself included. A mediator is a neutral third party whose goal is to help two sides in a labor dispute reach common ground on issues that are preventing a deal from being reached. The FMCS is the governmental arm that can help manage labor disputes like MLB's lockout, but necessitates both parties' agreements to the mediation. A mediator's job is not to negotiate a deal or impose any specific conditions. Mediators are not arbitrators who hear each side of an argument and deliver a ruling. The most effective mediation helps guide two parties to places they have not been able to get to themselves. Now, has this ever happened before? It's happened quite often in labor disputes. MLB used a mediator during the 1981 and 94 strikes. In 81, the mediator, who was then Ken Moffitt, worked with both parties during the 50-day strike and wound up being named executive director of the MLB Players Association before being fired less than a year later. During the 94 strike that wiped out the World Series, mediator Bill Usry, and hopefully I'm saying that correctly, was unsuccessful in bringing the parties to a resolution. Now, what would the league seek a mediator for when it's the one that implemented the lockout? Now, there could be several reasons. One could simply be that MLB is frustrated. If the league believes it has addressed most, if not all, of the union's concerns, but has found little progress through regular negotiations, it could enlist a third party to help. If the union accepts and the mediation fails, it could bring the sides closer to the regular season without a deal, and perhaps sow doubt in the minds of players who begin getting paid on opening day. At that point, the league may hope some of the union will push back against its leadership in order to hopefully press them to make a deal. Now, why did the union say no? For a union seeking significant change, there could be a feeling that the mediator would use the last collective bargaining agreement as a baseline and lean towards suggesting something closer to the status quo. The owners would be fine with that, obviously, but it wouldn't work out so good for the players because in the last negotiations, the owners got the better of the deal. Now, does the union rejecting a mediator set negotiations back even further? Not necessarily. It could actually be a good thing if one party, the union in this case, believes a mediator won't be helpful. The process could easily turn out to be wasted time, from waiting to schedule the mediation to the sessions themselves. Could the rejections raise animosity between the parties? Maybe, but it's not like there isn't already some aggression towards one another. Let's be honest about that. Where does this leave both sides? The same place they've been for almost a year of negotiation now. Nowhere good. The frustration from both parties is evident and was made clear in the last two bargaining sessions. 10 days ago, the league said it was open to pre-arbitration, but the union again rejected it. Now, here's the thing. I've been trying to pay attention and learn as much as I can in regards to what it is the Players Association is seeking versus what it is the owners are willing to give. Now, one of the sticking points I did find quite interesting. So, journeyman. Let's talk about the term journeyman for a minute. When you talk about a journeyman is a guy who's been playing in the league for a little while, quite a few years. He's not quite a star. He's really not anybody that you're looking to get into a long-term contract with. You're not trying to lock this guy in. A journeyman is a guy who comes onto your team and you're just looking for him to temporarily fulfill a need, right? You have journeyman quarterbacks in the NFL, and in baseball, you have journeyman designated hitters, pitchers, relievers. You've got guys that fill gaps. They're there when you need them. They're supposed to be Mr. Reliable. Now, in any form of business, you have certain positions where they just become basically worth less in regards to what their payment requirements are. And you have some where you have players in positions where they, because the game changes, become worth more. Let's flip from baseball to football for a moment so I can give you a proper example. In football, guys who used to get paid minimal money used to be the backup quarterbacks. Reserve quarterbacks never got paid a lot of money because they weren't playing a lot. You didn't expect a lot out of them. They weren't going to win you games. They were just kind of there, and they weren't really that important. The game has changed. It's more pass heavy. It's more reliant on the quarterback. It's more quarterback eccentric, if you will. And you do find quarterbacks now becoming injured and out for longer periods of time. And so now the reserve quarterback, backup quarterback, whatever you choose to call them, has now become a position where you have to pay more money to have a quality quarterback to be able to come in and run your offense and continue to win and play well while your starting quarterback is out. So now, because it has changed in regards to the role of the reserve quarterback, you are seeing backup quarterbacks become more valuable and earn more money because their value has now become more important to the game. In baseball, that's not necessarily the case. One of the sticking points is you have journeyman baseball players that, if they had played 6 years or longer in the league, they were averaging about $13.5 million a year. Now, that journeyman baseball player on average is getting about $6.5 million a year. A reduction. Why? Because the role's not as important. Again, in certain areas, in certain industries, certain jobs just don't require as much pay as they used to. I'll give you a better example. Uber and Lyft. Those are places that you go to get a reserve driver for when you can't drive. You got into an accident. Your license got suspended. Your mom, your dad, your husband, your wife don't have the ability to give you a ride. So you rely on Uber and Lyft. Okay, but here's the thing. Now, the driver has become expendable. You have self-driving cars. So now you have drivers that are going to be without jobs. That's just the way it works. Certain positions become expendable. In McDonald's, you don't have as many people working the front counter because you have kiosks where people can walk in and place their order. And now all they have to do is wait at the counter for the delivery of the order. So you don't have to, again, stand in a long line waiting for somebody to take your order. You're going to a kiosk. Things change. Industries change. Positions change. Importance of positions change. So in baseball, the journeyman, he's just not as important anymore. His role is not requiring to be paid $13.5 million a year. Now the average is $6.5 million a year. And as a fan, and here's the thing that people forget, because, a strike in baseball affects fans more so than it affects the media. Not like I care whether it affects the media. More so than it affects owners because they're going to get their money back. More so than it affects the players because I have a hard time crying for a player because now he's not getting paid $13.5 million. He's getting paid $6.5 million. And in the type of basically timeline that we're living in now, where the one percenters are basically supposedly supposed to be getting put in check, where they're now, I shouldn't say put in check, but technically it is getting put in check, where the one percenters are now basically being told you're overpaid and it's time for everybody else to get their due. I have a hard time believing that these baseball players believe that they need to not only continue to get paid their $13.5 million, but they actually need to get paid more than that if at all possible. So again, I have a hard time as a fan crying for somebody because they went from making $13.5 million to $6.5 million. Look, I say this to these guys, these journeymen. If you're unhappy with making $6.5 million, I'm sure Walmart or McDonald's would be more than happy to have you go work for them. That's what I say to these guys. That's what I say to the unrealistic baseball players that are crying because instead of making $13.5 million, they're now only going to make $6.5 million. And I'll say this one more time to make sure I press the point home. If you're that unhappy with getting paid $6.5 million as a Major League Baseball player, somebody who gets to play a game that they love, who obviously they're very good at, and obviously they're making a very good living at. But if you're not happy with $6.5 million, if $6.5 million is not good enough for the journeyman baseball player, I'm sure Walmart and McDonald's would be more than happy to have you go work for them. That's what I say to the crybaby baseball players that are whining like a bunch of babies about getting $6.5 million a year. There is no way to baby these guys. This is absolutely ridiculous. To go on strike because you're only getting $6.5 million instead of $13.5 million. Hey, man, go work at a car wash or take the $6.5 million that you're getting, and instead of splurging and spending it and going broke in a year, how about you learn how to invest that money? How about you learn how to build a financial portfolio? How about you learn how to buy and own and run some businesses? And when you're owning and running that business, I want to watch you pay these people that work for you a big chunk of your profits, since you seem to think that Major League Baseball is supposed to do it. I want to watch you open a business, run it, and barely make any money or profit because you're willing to pay your employees the maximum amount of money available to you. That's what I want to see. Because for all these baseball players that cry about the money that the owners make and cry about not making $13.5 million because they're only making $6.5 million, then, and I know a lot of them own businesses, so I would love to see them open their books and let me see how much you're paying your employees for the businesses that you own. I'll bet you're not paying nowhere near the high percentage that you're trying to get paid. I guarantee it. I'll guarantee it. I know you're not. I guarantee you're not. So for you to sit there and whine about the money that the owners are making, again, show us your books. You own a dry cleaner? Show me that general manager that you're paying $1.1 million to run your dry cleaner. You own a McDonald's franchise? Show me that general manager that you're paying $2.2 million a year to be the general manager of. I guarantee you're not. I guarantee you're paying $35,000, $45,000, $50,000, depending on the market size that it's in. Guaranteed. 100%, without a doubt. You're not overpaying anybody $1.1, $2.2, $3.5 million to be a general manager of your little business. I guarantee it. No doubt about it in my mind in any way, shape, or form. And again, and I'm not going to feel bad for somebody because you're making $6.5 million a year. You're not a superstar. You're a journeyman. You should be happy that you're even a member of the Major League Baseball Players Association. You should be happy that you're gifted by God with the ability to be able to play Major League Baseball. You should quit whining because you're only making $6.5 million in a position that no longer requires you to get paid $13.5 million. There's a reason why the superstars, the elite, the A players are getting paid more and more money each year, because they're worth more and more money each year, because their value to the marketplace makes them worth that amount of money every year. So since they are worth the money, they are getting paid the money. Maybe you need to figure out how to increase your skill set. Maybe that might be something you want to do. Maybe you should work harder in the offseason, figure out how to bunt, figure out how to be better at getting base hits, figure out how to be a better fielder, figure out how to be a better relief pitcher, catcher, starting pitcher, third baseman, whatever your role is. Figure out how to get better at it so you can command more money. Get the types of stats you need in order to be able to get more money. Or maybe take the $6.5 million a year that you would get, and why not in your contract build some benchmarks to get you some bonus money for reaching certain benchmarks like anybody in football would do? Why wouldn't you do that? Instead, we're on strike. And we as fans allegedly, apparently, are supposed to feel bad for you because instead of getting $13.5 million a year, you're only getting $6.5 million a year. And some way, somehow, we're supposed to feel bad for you. Not seeing it. Not understanding it. And then let's look at the other aspect of this when it comes to being a fan. If you're getting paid $13.5 million, and you're looking for that, obviously, to go up on an annual basis, just like the superstars are looking to get paid more on an annual basis, whether it be the NBA, whether it be Major League Baseball, whatever the case may be. But right now, we are specifically talking about baseball. Let's look at the ticket prices. Let's look at the average fan. Let's look at who gets to enjoy the ball games. It's not the average guy. It's the guy who has that job in downtown making a good income, or who has the suite seats because his company is a big company and they give away suite seats. So maybe every now and then, that guy from the regular medium to lower income neighborhood can go to a game because his company is gracious enough to give him a pair of tickets, but he can't go on his own because he can afford it, because you guys are looking to make absorbent amounts of money. The more money you look to get paid, the higher the ticket prices. Let's look at the Super Bowl, for instance. Now let's flip from Major League Baseball to the NFL. Let's flip to the NFL for a moment to have that discussion. Football players consistently, constantly, just like Major League Baseball, always looking to make more money, always looking to get paid more money. And guess what? This is what's funny to me. The Super Bowl is really nothing but a big party for the elites of America. That's really all it is. Big corporations, one percenters, they're the only people that get to enjoy the Super Bowl. Oh, yeah, every now and then, the NFL will pull up some, kids that are in some kind of a bad situation, and they'll tell you some great story about how they gave them tickets because they went through a hardship, and they'll do the promotional deal. But here's the thing. This is for me, and I'm sure most people, if you think about it, would agree with me. I, first and foremost, am happy that the NFL does that for those kids. Let me put that disclaimer out there before I say what I'm about to say. I'm happy that the NFL does that for those kids. But let's be realistic. The NFL's only doing that for show. They're only doing it to make it look like they care. They're only doing it to make you believe that something is true that is not true, which is the NFL cares about you. Because the Super Bowl and the playoffs, but the Super Bowl is nothing but, you could actually throw in the Pro Bowl too, but the Super Bowl is nothing but a big party for one percenters, major corporations, because big advertisers spend big money to advertise on one of the most watched games of the year. And the playoffs also are where advertisers spend a ton of money. Every year, the NFL raises the price a little bit more for advertisers to pay more money. Every year, players are looking to get paid more money, and that's the way it works. And I typically would have no problem with players trying to make as much money as they can, the NFL trying to make as much money as they can, and I really don't even have a problem with the NFL part of it per se. But here's the deal. For all the players that are earning all this money and continuing to ask for more money each and every year, all it does is make football and the Super Bowl and the playoffs, but football in general, it makes it more expensive. So therefore, the average man, the average fan from the low to medium income household doesn't have the ability to go enjoy games and pay $12, $13, $15 for a beer, $100 and some odd dollars for a single ticket when most households have families of 4. You don't have that kind of money to pay. And when the average ticket, and here's the kicker, when the average ticket for the Super Bowl is $5,300, and that's the average median, and I believe, if I'm not missed, let's see, I think I heard this morning, I just want to make sure I get this right. If I'm not misquoting what I heard, the lowest ticket price for the Super Bowl is $5,300. You show me what low to medium income family that can afford that for one single ticket. And I could just imagine what the beers are going to cost. Pretzels, popcorn. I could just imagine what the cost of that's going to be. Not to mention if you wanted to get any of the paraphernalia of the game, I could imagine what that would cost. But just the ticket alone, one single ticket, $5,300, because the players are continuously asking for more money and making it more expensive for the medium and low income, which predominantly, by the way, is the biggest part of the fan base of the NFL. But the biggest part of the fan base of the NFL can't afford to go to NFL games, can't afford to go to the Super Bowl, can't afford to go to the playoffs. So the Super Bowl is nothing but a big, giant party for one percenters. Hotel rooms, absolutely off the rocket expensive. Restaurants in the area, absolutely off the rocket expensive. The tickets, expensive. Flights. Come on, folks. Let's be realistic. The only people in person that are able to enjoy the Super Bowl are the people who are the one percenters. Even when you are a host city for the Super Bowl, yay, you could maybe afford to get into the NFL experience. Congratulations. Too bad you can't afford to go to the game or watch the game or have anything to do with the game in any way, shape, or form, because only the one percenters can afford $5,300 for a Super Bowl ticket. Flip back to baseball. Why am I picking on baseball? Because they're doing the exact same thing, and at least the NFL has a salary cap. Major League Baseball does not. So when Major League Baseball does not have a salary cap, these guys have the ability to try and command as much as they want. And the more they command, the more expensive everything gets for the average fan. How is that you, Major League Baseball, and your players who claim to care about everybody, to worry about everybody, to want to include everybody, but yet you make it more expensive so most people can't be there at the games, can't enjoy the games? The only way the average person in reality can afford to go to one game and have a shot at going to multiple games is if you're in a market where the team sucks. Like here in Phoenix, Arizona, where you got the Arizona Diamondbacks. You can get tickets for cheap here because the Diamondbacks and the product on the field sucks. But if the team started to have success and win, well, there goes the cheap ticket prices. So this is kind of ridiculous when you look at it. It really is. And then, of course, you have one night a week where they got the night where they know they're not going to fill the stands. So those are always super cheap ticket prices. Congratulations. We can go on the one day a week where nobody else wants to go because it's in the middle of the week. So it's ridiculous. I'm not, and I know most fans are not, going to cry over a baseball player not getting paid $13.5 million a year because there's no reason to. It's absolutely ridiculous for a baseball player to believe that fans should feel bad for them because they're not getting paid that kind of money. Now, you could tell me you want better health care for the players. Okay, great. You want some kind of retirement package for the players. Okay, great. You can tell me you want better accommodation for the AA players and all that stuff because I've heard that that's part of the complaint. Okay, great. I can see that. But none of those are reasons why you should go on strike. And the biggest sticking point that I am hearing is about money. Players not making enough money. players believing because they're in the league 6 years or more that all of a sudden, because they're in the league 6 years or more, they all of a sudden deserve to get paid an absorbent amount of money. And folks, it's just like any other industry. Sometimes certain jobs become more valuable, so therefore employers have to pay more money. And sometimes jobs become less valuable and they got to pay less money because they're not as valuable. Just like Uber and Lyft drivers pretty soon are not going to exist anymore because you have self-driving cars. You have automation in restaurants, which makes it so restaurant owners have to basically pay less on payroll because they don't have to employ as many people. That's the way it works. That's the way of industry. That's just the reality. And Major League Baseball needs to live in the world of reality and quit trying to make everything unaffordable to the average man because you're asking for major pay, and the average man doesn't have the ability to be able to continue to pay these rising ticket prices every year. Not to mention the crazy amount of money it costs just for a Coke or a bottle of water. It's absolutely insane. And we continue to hear all these baseball players and basketball players and football players, they go online and they tell you how they care and, oh, they can't believe that things are the way they are. They don't understand why the government allows it to be where you have the poorest of the poor staying poor while the richest of the rich continue to get rich. And yet they're part of the richest of the rich that continue to get rich. And they continue to ask for more and act like they're middle class somehow. It's ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. And I'll take on any Major League Baseball player who wants to have this debate. Anytime, any place, anywhere, any podcast. You name it, let's do it. Because you're insane. You guys are always saying how you are for the average person, how you are against the poor staying poor while the rich get richer. And yet you're part of the rich trying to get richer. Meanwhile, not worried about the average man who can barely afford to go to games. And every year it gets worse and worse and worse. And a lot of people get knocked out of the ability to be able to afford games because your high salaries are commanding higher ticket prices and higher parking pass prices and higher parking prices and higher prices for Cokes and popcorn. It's ridiculous. And you're ridiculous. Quit acting like you're for the average man, and yet you're out there, part of the rich, trying to get richer and leaving everybody else in the bottom assed out. There's no even politically correct way to say it because that's what you're doing. It's ridiculous. There is no excuse for this. There should be no strike. And not to mention, if you guys care so much about the average man, and you claim you do, I hear it all the time. You guys run promos all the time. You got stuff on TV all the time talking about how you care, how people matter. You're there for the poor. You're there in the communities. Yeah, you're there happy as long as you know tomorrow you're going to make $1 million. But now that you're not making $1 million, I bet there ain't none of you out in your communities right now doing a dang thing for your community. I bet all you're worried about right now is how to negotiate and get more money, but ain't a one of you out there doing anything for your local hospitals or charities or anything of the such, because all you're worried about right now is trying to get a new contract. I guarantee it, because when you're happy and things are good, you're all out there, you're all for the neighborhood, you are all in. But when things ain't going good and you're only getting $6.5 million instead of $13.5 million and you're in the middle of negotiations on your contract, now all of a sudden you're not worried about what's going on in your community or how the community is doing, because you got to take care of yourself, because some way, somehow, you're under the impression that you're living in poverty. It's ridiculous. It's absolutely 100% ridiculous. This is unexcusable. And right now, when we're getting ready to go into spring training, when tickets and, refreshments and things of the like are actually affordable for the average guy to be able to go and watch games. And for a lot of people, it's their only opportunity to go and get to support their favorite team and get close to their team and watch upcoming players and potential big leaguers and potential guys who are going to be getting called up in the middle of the year and their favorite superstars that they only get to watch on TV. Spring training is the only opportunity for a lot of fans to be able to get that close to those players. But now that's going to be taken away because you're too busy worried about making sure you make $13.5 million a year. Absolutely unexcusable and ridiculous. Absolutely unexcusable. I've been listening to this garbage enough, and I, as a fan, have had enough. And there isn't anything that I have really heard outside of, again, there are a few things. I shouldn't say anything. There's a few things, but what I've heard can be negotiated. Doesn't need to be anything that stops the play of baseball. You want to negotiate some kind of retirement so guys can have insurance after they retire from playing baseball and they play for X amount of years in order to qualify for this said retirement. That's fine. That's good. Go for it. You deserve it. I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that. But at the same time, you know what? A guy can't work for 20 years at Walmart and necessarily retire and expect to have all his expenses and paid for. I mean, it doesn't always work out that way. It should, but it doesn't always work out that way. And besides, you're getting paid millions of dollars. Millions of dollars. I'm sure after getting paid millions of dollars, you can afford to take care of your health care on your own. But if you want to negotiate something, that's fine with me. Go for it. Do it. But it doesn't mean you need to stop baseball from being played. You want to negotiate the ability to have some kind of health care, some kind of retirement system, some kind of better way to take care of the guys who are just coming into the league, maybe get them a little better pay for entering the league. That's fine. Those things are fine. But to have it be a major sticking point that the guys who are considered to be journeymen, and the term journeyman, it's not a compliment, and a journeyman's not a star. So $13.5 million, in my opinion, that's a lot to pay for somebody who's not a star. That's a lot to pay for somebody who you're only bringing your team for 1 year, and you're probably going to let them go, or you're going to see if they're good enough to offer a better contract to. Maybe you should take those journeyman years and figure out how to earn your way into a better contract. Instead of thinking that you're supposed to be handed $13.5 million a year. And again, I don't hear anything in these negotiations that say that the fans get anything out of the deal. We're not getting lower ticket prices. We're not getting the opportunity to go to games for free. We're not getting free parking. We're not getting anything. But we're getting punished because you guys won't play ball because you're not getting $13.5 million a year. Ridiculous. Unexcusable. Unacceptable. That's going to do it for today's podcast. You guys have a great day. We will talk again tomorrow. This has been the Yay or Nay Show with Alex C.